The desperate summons the last council. The great hall of Nexus Station trembled as another distant star system went dark on the galactic display. Council leader Thyma watched the light fade with growing despair, her crystalline form shifting through shades of deep blue that reflected her emotional state. Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence. The Shadow Swarm had taken another world. That makes 23 civilizations completely consumed, announced Archon, the insectoid military advisor, whose usually confident chirping had become subdued and hollow. The Meridian Empire, the singing crystals of Vega Prime, the botanical collective of the Outer Rim, all gone. Absorbed into that nightmare, Thyma's voice resonated through the tomb chamber's translation systems as she addressed the assembled delegates. The Shadow Swarm grows stronger with each world they devour. Their black ships multiply using the very life force of our people. Every defense we mount only feeds their expansion. The holographic display showed the spreading darkness across the galaxy map. What had begun as isolated attacks on frontier worlds had become a wave of destruction moving steadily toward the core systems. The Shadow Swarm's vessels were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They consumed organic matter, converting it directly into more ships, more weapons, more soldiers for their endless assault. Elder Vox, the ancient amphibian whose species had survived for millennia through careful diplomacy, raised one webbed hand. Our combined fleets cannot match their numbers. The Tau Ceti Defense Force lasted only 6 hours. The Rigel Coalition's armada was consumed entirely, adding 5,000 ships to their forces. What of the evacuation protocols? Asked Commander Zyle, her scaled features showing the exhaustion that had become common among military leaders. Can we at least save the populations? Thyma's crystalline form flickered with darker hues. The Shadow Swarm has learned to predict our evacuation routes. They arrive before our rescue ships, trapping entire populations on their worlds. The screams from Altair 7 still echo through hyperspace communications. The ancient hope, the chamber fell into the kind of silence that comes before terrible decisions. It was Keeper Nos, the elderly guardian of ancient knowledge, who finally spoke from his position at the Wisdom Circle. There may be one option we have not considered, he said, his voice carrying the weight of countless centuries. The old records speak of guardians who once protected our galaxy from threats beyond imagination. Several council members made sounds of disbelief. Elder Vox's throat sac inflated with skepticism. The guardian myths? Keeper Nos, we face extinction. This is not the time for children's stories. The records are more than stories. Nos insisted, his tentacles reaching toward the ancient data crystals that contained prehistory. During the First Darkness, when the galaxy nearly fell to similar threats, beings of incredible power answered the call for help. The ritual of summoning is preserved in the deepest archives. Council leader Thyma studied the Keeper with new interest. You're suggesting we attempt to contact these mythical guardians? The ritual requires the combined energy of all major species, Nos explained, manipulating the holographic display to show ancient symbols and energy patterns. If performed correctly, it should reach across space and time to call for aid against existential threats. Archon's compound eyes reflected this, Chambers' lights as he processed this information. And if these guardians no longer exist? If they cannot help us? Then we die having tried everything, Thyma replied with grim determination. The Shadow Swarm will reach the core worlds within months at their current pace. What other choice do we have? A ritual of last hope 3 days later. Representatives from every surviving civilization gathered in the deepest chamber of Nexus Station. The ancient ritual circle had been carved into the station's foundation according to prehistoric instructions that predated known history. Energy conduits from 12 different species. Most advanced technologies fed power into the carved symbols. Keeper Nos stood at the center, his tentacles touching control interfaces that hummed with barely contained energy. "The ancient texts say we must focus on our greatest need," he announced to the assembled council. "We call not for conquest, but for protection. Not for dominance, but for survival." The ritual began as the station's chronometer marked the moment of galactic alignment. Energy from every species flowed into the stone circle, their different technologies somehow harmonizing through the ancient design. The symbols carved in the floor began to glow with increasing intensity until the entire chamber filled with blinding light. Space itself seemed to bend around the station as the energy discharge reached across the galaxy, seeking the mythical guardians of legend. The pulse traveled through hyperspace, through dimensions unknown to modern science, searching for beings powerful enough to save them from the shadow swarm. An unexpected answer, thousands of light years away, in a completely different spiral arm of the galaxy. The energy pulse struck something unexpected. It wasn't ancient guardians or mythical beings of power. Instead, it intersected with Earth's deep space communication array, just as the Terra Exploration Fleet conducted routine exercises in the Sol system. Admiral Chan Rodriguez was reviewing tactical reports aboard the flagship UES Determination when every communication system on her ship activated simultaneously. Alarms blared as unknown energy patterns flooded their networks, carrying what appeared to be a distress signal, unlike anything in human databases. "Admiral, we're receiving what looks like an emergency transmission," reported Communications Officer Sarah Kim from her station. "The signal contains multiple language fragments, stellar coordinates, and what appears to be tactical data showing destroyed star systems." Admiral Rodriguez studied the strange readings flowing across her displays. The signal showed images of consumed worlds, massive alien fleets, and what looked like desperate evacuation attempts. "Can you clean up the translation protocols?" "Working on it, Admiral. The signal seems to be asking for help. There are coordinates included, along with what might be military intelligence about some kind of invasion force." Dr. James Wright, the fleet's xenobiologist and first contact specialist, joined them on the bridge. He had spent years preparing for humanity's eventual encounter with alien intelligence, though not under these circumstances. "If this is genuinely from extraterrestrial sources, Admiral, this could be the first contact situation we've been preparing for." Admiral Rodriguez made her decision quickly. Humanity had expanded beyond Sol, specifically to explore and potentially aid other intelligences they might encounter. "Dr. Wright, initiate first contact protocols." "Communications, get me Admiral Hassan at Earth Command. We need authorization for a potential rescue mission." The response from Earth came within hours. "Admiral Rodriguez, this is Admiral Hassan. You are authorized to investigate the signal source and render assistance if possible. The Second Fleet is being prepared for immediate deployment to your coordinates. Whatever sent that signal, they're clearly in trouble. First contact with desperation. The human fleet arrived at the coordinates transmitted in the alien signal. They found something extraordinary. Nexus Station hung in space like a crystalline city, surrounded by hundreds of ships representing dozens of different alien civilizations. The diversity was staggering. Organic vessels that seemed grown rather than built, geometric craft that defied conventional physics, and energy constructs that barely qualified as solid matter. Admiral, we're being scanned by multiple sources, reported Tactical Officer Marcus Chun. The technology is incredibly advanced, but they're not targeting us. It seems more like curiosity. A transmission came through their communication systems, somehow translated into perfect English. "Unknown vessels. This is Council Leader Thyma of the Zephyrian Alliance. Are you the Guardians we summoned? We desperately need assistance against the Shadow Swarm." Admiral Rodriguez activated the ship's main communication array. This is Admiral Chung Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Forces. We received what appeared to be a distress signal and came to offer assistance. Can you clarify the nature of your emergency? The pause that followed seemed to last forever. When the alien response came, there was obvious confusion in the translated voice. You are not the ancient guardians. You are an unknown species. How did our ritual reach you? We don't know about any ritual, Admiral Rodriguez replied honestly. We received what our systems interpreted as a call for help. Our species has a policy of responding to distress signals regardless of their origin, the scope of catastrophe. The first face-to-face meeting took place in a specially configured chamber aboard Nexus Station. Admiral Rodriguez, Dr. Wright, and Commander Lisa Park represented humanity, while Council Leader Thyma, Keeper Nos, and Military Advisor Arkin spoke for the Alien Alliance. Dr. Wright activated his translation equipment as they entered the chamber. The aliens were unlike anything from human imagination. Thyma's crystalline form shifted colors as she spoke, while Arkin's insectoid features moved with precise, almost mechanical precision. I am Council Leader Thyma, the crystalline being said through the translation interface. We lead what remains of the Zephyrian Alliance. The Shadow Swarm has been consuming our civilizations for 8 months. 23 worlds have fallen completely. Dr. Wright leaned forward with professional interest. Can you tell us more about this Shadow Swarm? What kind of threat are we dealing with? Arkin activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with images of destruction. Black, organic-looking ships swarmed through space, consuming everything in their path. Planets stripped of life, fleets absorbed into the enemy forces, entire star systems left as empty husks. They convert all organic matter into more ships, Thyma explained. Every defense force we lose makes them stronger. They adapt to our weapons, learn from our tactics, and use our own strength against us. Commander Park studied the tactical data with growing concern. How large are their forces? Intelligence estimates place their current strength at over 200,000 vessels, Arkin replied. And that number increases with every world they consume. Our combined alliance fleets total perhaps 30,000 ships, and we lose more in every engagement. Admiral Rodriguez processed this information carefully. What's your current defensive strategy? Evacuation and retreat, Thyma admitted with obvious shame. We save who we can and abandon what we cannot defend. It's the only way to preserve some remnant of our civilizations. Dr. Wright exchanged glances with the other human officers. There was something fundamentally different about how these species approached warfare. Have you considered offensive operations? Striking at their source? The aliens looked confused. Keeper Nos spoke for the first time since the meeting began. Offensive operations? You mean attacking them directly? That would be suicide. They outnumber us 6-1. Sometimes offense is the best defense, Commander Park observed. Have you identified their command structure? Supply lines? Breeding grounds? Breeding grounds? Arkin's compound eyes focused on her with interest. They reproduce by converting consumed matter. There are reports of massive hive ships in the Darkness Nebula, but no one has survived long enough to gather detailed intelligence. Admiral Rodriguez felt a familiar stirring, the same instinct that had driven humanity to thrive in hostile environments across Earth and beyond. Admiral Hassan, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We need the full battle group. And contact Earth Command. I think we're going to need the Third Fleet as well. The transmission to Earth was brief but clear. Earth Command, we have confirmed first contact with multiple alien civilizations facing extinction from a hostile swarm entity. The aliens attempted to summon mythical guardians and somehow reached us instead, requesting permission to render military assistance. The response came back from Earth within hours. Admiral Rodriguez, you are authorized to use all necessary force to assist our new allies. The reputation of humanity will be decided by how we respond to this first contact. Don't let us down. As the human fleet prepared for war against an enemy they had never faced, the alien council watched in amazement. They had called for ancient guardians to save them from extinction. Instead, they had found something perhaps more dangerous, a species that responded to calls for help by bringing their entire military to bear against the problem. The Shadow Swarm had consumed 23 civilizations, but they had never faced humanity before. And humans had a very different approach to solving existential threats than anything the galaxy had seen. The war was about to begin, and the aliens were starting to realize that their ritual had summoned something far more powerful, and the mythical guardians they had hoped to find. They had summoned a species that specialized in turning impossible odds into decisive victories. Human solution. The fleet arrives. The space around Nexus Station transformed as more human ships arrived through hyperspace jumps. What had begun as Admiral Rodriguez's exploration fleet grew into a massive military formation as the second and third fleets joined the operation. The alien representatives watched in stunned silence as over 800 human vessels took positions around their station. Council leader Fama's crystalline form shifted through colors of amazement and concern as she observed the human fleet through the station sensors. Their ships are so different, she noted to keep her nos. No organic components, no energy constructs. They appear to be built entirely from metal and synthetic materials. Primitive materials used in advanced ways, Archon observed, his compound eyes analyzing the tactical formations. But their positioning is perfect. No gaps in coverage, overlapping fields of fire, and they're maintaining formations that suggest extensive combat experience. Dr. Wright had been studying the alien psychological profiles during the fleet buildup. He approached Admiral Rodriguez with his findings. Admiral, I think we're dealing with a fundamental difference in how these species view warfare. They've been fighting defensively for millennia. The concept of total war is foreign to them. Admiral Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. That explains their retreat strategy. They're trying to preserve their civilizations rather than eliminate the threat. She activated the communication array. Council Leader Thyma, we need detailed intelligence on Shadow Swarm positions, capabilities, and objectives. The briefing that followed revealed the scope of humanity's challenge. The Shadow Swarm controlled vast regions of space, with their primary hive clusters located in the Darkness Nebula, a region of space that interfered with most alien sensors. Their ships were completely biological, capable of rapid reproduction and adaptation to energy weapons. They've learned to counter every weapon we possess. Military Advisor Arkin explained during the tactical session. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravitic disruptors. They adapt and become immune within hours of first exposure. Commander, Park studied the tactical data with growing interest. Have you tried kinetic weapons? Physical projectiles? Explosive compounds? The aliens looked confused. Thyma's colors shifted to puzzled blues and greens. Kinetic weapons? You mean throwing objects at them? That technology was abandoned thousands of years ago. Sometimes the old ways work best, Admiral Rodriguez replied with a slight smile. Especially against adaptive enemies. Biology has limits that technology doesn't. Understanding the enemy Captain Maya, Singh stood on the bridge of the UES Relentless, studying the reconnaissance data her advanced scouts had collected. As commander of humanity's rapid response forces, she specialized in analyzing unknown threats and developing counter-tactics. Shadow Swarm ships are impressive, she reported to Admiral Rodriguez via holographic communication. Completely organic construction, integrated weapon systems, and they can literally consume other vessels to fuel reproduction. But they have weaknesses the aliens haven't exploited. Explain, Admiral Rodriguez prompted. They're purely biological. which means they have the same vulnerabilities as any living organism. Extreme temperature variations, toxic environments, and most importantly, they can't adapt to things that destroy them faster than they can regenerate. Dr. Wright joined the conversation from his research station. I've been analyzing the biological samples our scouts collected. The shadow swarm organisms operate on accelerated metabolism. They can adapt quickly to energy weapons by modifying their cellular structure. But this same rapid metabolism makes them vulnerable to physical destruction. The aliens have been fighting them wrong. Commander Park concluded. Energy weapons give them time to adapt. Physical weapons don't. Admiral Rodriguez made her decision. Captain Singh, take the fast response group and conduct a probe attack on one of their outlying positions. I want to test our theories before committing the full fleet. First blood, the Shadow Swarm outpost in the Kepler 442 system had been consuming the remains of a failed evacuation fleet for weeks, using the organic matter to grow new vessels. When Captain Singh's squadron emerged from hyperspace, they found 30 Shadow Swarm ships feeding on the wreckage. All units. This is relentless actual, Captain Singh announced to her squadron. We're testing new tactical doctrine. Kinetic weapons only, maximum rate of fire. Let's see how they handle old-fashioned projectiles. The human attack was unlike anything the Shadow Swarm had encountered. Instead of energy beams that they could adapt to, streams of depleted uranium projectiles tore through their organic hulls at relativistic speeds. Explosive warheads detonated inside their vessels, creating damage faster than their regenerative systems could repair. Direct hits on targets. Alpha through Charlie, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the tactical station. The enemy vessels are attempting to regenerate, but the physical trauma is too extensive. The Shadow Swarm ships tried to respond with their usual swarming tactics, but the human vessels maintained distance while continuing their kinetic bombardment. Within 20 minutes, all 30 enemy ships were destroyed completely, reduced to expanding clouds of organic debris. Asterisk. Relentless to Fleet Command, Captain Singh reported with satisfaction. Kinetic weapons are highly effective. The enemy cannot adapt to physical destruction. They're vulnerable to everything from simple explosives to nuclear warheads. The War Council. Success of the probe attack changed everything. Admiral Rodriguez called for a joint planning session that included both human officers and alien representatives. The meeting took place aboard the flagship in a conference room hastily modified to accommodate different atmospheric and gravitational requirements. The reconnaissance confirms our tactical assessment, Admiral Rodriguez began. The Shadow Swarm is vulnerable to kinetic and thermal weapons. They've adapted to energy weapons over centuries of fighting, but they've never faced old-fashioned physical destruction. Council. Leader Themis crystalline form, pulsed with hopeful colors. You're saying you can actually destroy them permanently? We can do better than that, Commander Park replied, activating the strategic display. We can eliminate them completely. The Shadow Swarm has made a critical mistake. They've concentrated their breeding facilities in predictable locations. The holographic display showed the Darkness Nebula and surrounding systems where Shadow Swarm hive ships had been detected. Archon studied the formations with professional interest. Those hive clusters contain millions of organisms. Attacking them would be suicide. For energy-based weapons, yes, Admiral Rodriguez agreed. But we're not using energy weapons. Dr. Wright explained the biological warfare protocols. Dr. Wright activated his portion of the presentation. The Shadow Swarm's rapid metabolism is their greatest weakness. We've developed atmospheric toxins that are lethal to their biology, but harmless to other known life forms. Combined with thermal weapons that burn at temperatures no organic matter can survive, we can sterilize entire hive clusters. The alien representatives stared at the human officers in stunned silence. Keeper Noss finally found his voice. You're proposing to commit genocide against the entire species? We're proposing to eliminate an existential threat, Admiral Rodriguez replied calmly. The Shadow Swarm has already committed genocide against 23 civilizations. They've shown no capacity for communication, negotiation, or coexistence. They exist only to consume and multiply. Thyma's colors shifted through deep contemplation patterns. This approach is unlike anything in our military doctrine. We fight to defend, not to completely annihilate. That's why you've been losing, Commander Park said bluntly. You can't defend against an enemy that grows stronger with every battle. The only solution is to eliminate their capacity to reproduce and then hunt down every remaining ship. The human way of war, the full scope of humanity's plan emerged over the next several hours. It was breathtaking in its completeness and terrifying in its implications. Human fleets would simultaneously strike every known Shadow Swarm position. Fast attack groups would pursue fleeing vessels. Heavy bombardment units would sterilize breeding grounds. Specialized hunter-killer squadrons would track down survivors. This is total war, Arkin observed with something approaching awe. You intend to eliminate every single Shadow Swarm organism in the galaxy. That's how humans handle existential threats, Admiral Rodriguez confirmed. We don't just defend ourselves. We eliminate the source of the threat so it can never threaten anyone again. The aliens struggled to comprehend this approach. Elder Vox raised concerns about the scale of destruction. What if some Shadow Swarm organisms are innocent? What if they're capable of change? They've had 8 months to demonstrate any capacity for restraint or communication, Dr. Wright replied. They've consumed 23 entire civilizations without any attempt at contact. They are, by definition, an existential threat to all organic life. Captain Singh provided the military perspective. In human military doctrine, when facing an enemy that cannot be reasoned with, negotiated with, or deterred, complete destruction is not just acceptable, it's necessary for survival. Council leader Thyma made her decision after long consultation with her fellow council members. The Zephyrian Alliance authorizes joint operations under human military command. Show us how your species fights for survival. Operation Total Eclipse. The coordinated assault began at 0800 hours Galactic Standard Time. Across 12 star systems, human fleets emerged from hyperspace to engage Shadow Swarm forces. The enemy's initial response followed their established pattern. Massive swarms of Warships attempting to overwhelm the attackers. Through sheer numbers, the Shadow Swarm had never faced an enemy like humanity. Captain Singh led the assault on the primary hive cluster in the Darkness Nebula. Her squadron faced over 50,000 Shadow Swarm vessels, but the humans had brought something the enemy couldn't adapt to. Overwhelming firepower delivered through kinetic weapons. All units, commence bombardment, Captain Singh ordered as her fleet entered optimal firing range. Nuclear warheads are authorized for hive ship targets. Make sure nothing survives. The space battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships maintained perfect formations while delivering devastating barrages of kinetic projectiles and nuclear warheads. The Shadow Swarm ships tried to adapt, tried to regenerate, but the physical destruction was too complete and too rapid. When a hive ship the size of a small moon was reduced to expanding plasma by a concentrated nuclear bombardment, the remaining Shadow Swarm forces attempted to retreat. This was the moment humanity had prepared for. Pursuit squadrons, you are authorized to engage, Admiral Rodriguez broadcast to all human forces. No Shadow Swarm vessel leaves this system alive. The hunt that followed demonstrated humanity's approach to total warfare. Fast attack craft pursued fleeing enemies across multiple star systems. Every Shadow Swarm vessel was tracked down and destroyed. When some tried to hide in asteroid fields or gas giant atmospheres, Human forces followed them and eliminated them there. Victory and its price. Battle of the Darkness Nebula lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Shadow Swarm's primary breeding facilities had been completely destroyed, along with their defensive fleets. Across the galaxy, simultaneous human attacks eliminated every known Shadow Swarm position. The alien allies watched in amazement as humanity demonstrated what total victory looked like. Within 72 hours, an existential threat that had terrorized the galaxy for 8 months had been completely eliminated. Casualty reports. Admiral Rodriguez requested as the final Shadow Swarm positions fell silent. Human losses are minimal. Commander Park reported. 14 ships damaged, 3 destroyed. Total casualties under 200. Allied forces suffered no losses. They remained in defensive positions as planned. The disparity was staggering. The Shadow Swarm had lost their entire species. 23 consumed civilizations were avenged. The galaxy was safe. Council leader Thyma's first words after the victory were colored by awe and concern. You've eliminated them completely. An entire species, gone forever. An entire threat, Admiral Rodriguez corrected. The Shadow Swarm made their choice when they began consuming civilizations. We simply provided the consequences. The new reality in the aftermath of humanity's victory, the galactic political landscape, changed forever. The Zephyrian Alliance had witnessed what happened when humans answered a call for help. They didn't just provide aid, they eliminated the problem permanently. Hypernos studied the tactical reports with scientific fascination. Your species approaches warfare like a natural force. Inevitable, unstoppable, complete. We approach survival like a species that's had to fight for everything we've ever achieved. Dr. Wright replied, Earth wasn't a gentle world. We learned early that half measures against existential threats lead to extinction. Asterisk, the restoration began immediately. Human engineering teams helped rebuild damaged worlds. Human medical teams treated survivors of Shadow Swarm attacks. Human diplomatic teams established formal relations with dozens of alien civilizations. But everyone understood the lesson. Humanity had been accidentally summoned by an ancient ritual meant to call mythical guardians. Instead, the aliens had found something far more effective, a species that turned impossible odds into complete victory. Admiral Rodriguez's final report to Earth Command captured the significance of the moment. The Shadow Swarm threat has been permanently eliminated. First contact with multiple alien civilizations successful. Humanity's reputation in galactic affairs established as protectors, willing and able to eliminate existential threats. The galaxy had called for help, and humanity had answered. The Shadow Swarm would never threaten another world, another species, another civilization. They had learned, too late, that there are some species you should never force to fight for survival. Earth had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the guardians the galaxy had been seeking all along. They were the ones who answered calls for help with overwhelming force, decisive action, and total victory. The aliens had summoned humanity by accident. The Shadow Swarm's extinction proved it was the best mistake the galaxy had ever made. Asterisk.